Government committee submits long-term housing report. Top officials condemn anti-mainland protest. And deadly attack involving South Korean tourists in Egypt.
Good evening. In our top story tonight, a long-term housing strategy is taking shape here in Hong Kong. A high-level committee today submitted its report to the government. While it's come up with a supply target of 470,000 units in the next 10 years, there is no consensus yet on issues such as rent control and the regulation of subdivided flats. Evelina Lung reports.
A public consultation exercise produced this long-term housing strategy steering committee report on the city's housing strategy in the coming decade. Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Cheung, who chairs the committee, said consensus is gradually building on many key housing issues. These include the long-term target of 470,000 units, at least 60% of which will be public housing, an increase in home ownership scheme flats, and an increase in private sector participation in providing subsidized housing. But other issues proved to be more controversial, one being the construction of additional units in existing public housing estates. Cheung said there's strong opposition to this idea. As for rent control and the regulation of subdivided flats, the committee has urged the government to be cautious while handling these two issues.
The steering committee is concerned about the consequences of reinstating rental control, including the possibility of an immediate increase in rental levels and a reduction in supply. Many respondents were skeptical of the idea of introducing a licensing or land registration system for SDUs on grounds that without a package of complementary measures, this would result in a reduction in the supply of SDUs, which would push up rents. Some were also concerned that the landlords would pass on to tenants the cost of compliance with the licensing or registration requirements.
Cheung insisted the committee is keen to see its recommendations implemented and that it has responded to many of society's demands. The report has now been submitted to the government.
The Transport and Housing Chief says the government will take into consideration the consultation report and the comments gathered during the consultation period and is expected to announce its long-term housing strategy later on this year. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
Anthony Cheung has defended the so-called negative vetting mechanism when it comes to the possible relaxation of property cooling measures. The issue's up for discussion in LegCo again later this week. Jenny Lam has that story.
The second reading of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill will resume at the Legislative Council on Wednesday. Lawmakers have put forward at least 6 amendments. In an article published in both Chinese and English language newspapers today, Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Cheung wrote that higher stamp duties were needed to prevent a property bubble and prices from climbing further. He also wrote the government has from day one made it clear that it will taper or withdraw such measures to swiftly respond to changes in market conditions, and it would do so through negative vetting. That is, adjustments would take effect immediately after subsidiary legislation is gazetted. LegCo will then debate the changes. Cheung argues against allowing lawmakers to debate the issue first before any changes would take effect. Positive vetting, he wrote, would undermine the responsiveness of the adjustment and create market uncertainties in the meantime. He also hit back at critics who say the government intervened in the market with those property cooling measures, saying a bubble would affect overall economic and financial stability. But Democratic Party legislator James To questioned why the government supports negative vetting over lower stamp duties and positive vetting over higher duties. He's called for an emergency meeting in the LegCo Bills Committee to discuss the matter. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
To other news now, police will investigate whether those who staged a protest against mainland tourists in Tsim Sha Tsui yesterday have broken the law. Top government officials today condemned the demonstration, saying it goes against Hong Kong's core values. Jenny Lam again.
Mainland tourists on Canton Road were targeted by protesters who accused the visitors of disrupting life in Hong Kong. Locusts, they call them, while waving colonial-era flags. Some of the shops had to close their doors to avoid the chaos. It's the latest in a series of conflicts between the people of Hong Kong and the mainland. Condemning the protesters today, Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Raymond Tam said they were barbaric and uncivilized. I was shocked, he said, and their action was against our core values. Tam also pointed out a majority of Hong Kong people treasure the relationship between the SAR and the mainland. Secretary for Security Lai Tung Kwok said the tourists were frightened and insulted and that the protesters disrupted public order. Lai added that the police will investigate whether those who joined the campaign yesterday broke the law by acting disorderly in a public place. Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Gregory So said such irrational action damaged Hong Kong's reputation as a tourist destination. He stressed Hong Kong welcomes people from around the world to do business and to spend their holiday here. Tourism Board Chairman Peter Lam echoed So's views, saying no one wants to see the city's image damaged. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
The Taiwan Affairs Office on the mainland has confirmed that Honorary Kuomintang Chairman Lian Zhan will meet President Xi Jinping in his capacity as General Secretary of the Communist Party of China. Lian is heading a delegation from Taiwan to Beijing and is expected to meet with Xi tomorrow. The four-day trip aims to strengthen cross-strait ties, that is, between the two sides. Lian is also expected to visit sites to observe Beijing's development. At least 4 people have been killed and around a dozen more wounded after an attack on a bus in Egypt carrying a group of South Korean tourists. It stoked fears of another round of violence against travelers in the country at a time when Egypt's economy badly needs the money that tourists bring. Tony Sabine reports.
The Foreign Ministry in Seoul was swift to condemn yesterday's attack on a tour bus in Egypt, which was filled with South Korean tourists. Our government cannot repress our anger and astonishment over the bomb terror against the tourist bus carrying our people, said Foreign Ministry spokesman Cho Tae-yong. The travellers were members of a South Korean church who were on a pilgrimage to Christian sites in Turkey, Egypt and Israel. The South Korean government is preparing a task force to assist citizens affected and to bring them home. Egyptian authorities were also quick to condemn the attack and vowed to find the culprits and bring them to justice. Security officials in the country believe the blast was caused by either a car bomb or a roadside device that was detonated by remote control. The attack in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, a region popular with tourists because of its famous Red Sea resorts, left several people dead and around a dozen more wounded. Officials say the bus had set out from Cairo and was about to enter Israel from the Egyptian border town of Taba when the bomb went off. It was the first hit against tourists in Sinai in nearly a decade. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, but it sparked fears of another wave of militant violence against tourists in the country. Egypt's vital tourism sector, which normally accounts for about 11% of the economy, has suffered greatly from the political turmoil that has followed the 2011 overthrow of former President Hosni Mubarak. The blast came as signs of a slow recovery in the industry were emerging, especially at Red Sea resorts like Sharm el-Sheikh. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
The crew and passengers on an Ethiopian Airlines flight are all safe after it landed in Geneva today following a hijacking attempt. Swiss authorities say the co-pilot took control of the plane while the captain was in the toilet and then proceeded to land it. The flight was heading to Rome from Addis Ababa when the incident happened. Officers arrested the co-pilot soon after the plane landed and escorted passengers and crew safely to a waiting bus. Ethiopian Airlines confirmed today that one of its planes had been forced to proceed to Geneva. Its website said the flight landed safely but gave no further details. Swiss authorities say the co-pilot was attempting to seek asylum in Switzerland.
South African police say 11 miners who were trapped in an abandoned mine shaft and later rescued now face charges of illegal mining. The miners are in police custody after their rescue a day earlier. Emergency workers say other trapped miners at the site near Johannesburg have refused to come out, fearing they too will be arrested. The trapped miners were discovered after police patrolling the area heard shouting beneath a mine entrance that was blocked by a large boulder. The shaft belongs to Chinese-owned bullion producer Gold One. Penalties for illegal mining include fines and prison time.
And still ahead in our newscast, plans to build a third Disney hotel gathering steam, action from the NBA All-Star Game, and meet the winners of this year's BAFTAs.